Hello and welcome to Gabriel's 3D Printing. Today we'll be looking at this easy print Toucan uploaded by Modern Gnome. First things first, we go down to developer notes to see if they have any specifications, and they say that you will need glue for the final product and that they use a 0% infill, 3 shells, and no supports. So keeping that in mind, we're going to go back up here, click on the download all files, and we should get quite a few STLs. Now there's multiple ways you can print the actual head of the model, and some may be easier than others, but the easiest way to print it and the best way I think for beginners is going to be printing the head all in one piece. So in order for this print, you're going to need first the Toucan base. So you're going to hold the control button and click on Toucan base plus pegs. We're going to click on the Toucan top halves. And we are also going to click on the body plus peg STL. And it should just be those 3 that we need. So now you're going to let go of the control button, click on the STLs, and drag it all the way into your slicer of choice. And give it a few seconds to render in. Once the model is loaded in, you should see all these parts. So even though we have 3 STLs, we have quite a few parts. We have the actual base down here, with the body plus the square, then the head, which is these 2 parts here. So taking this step by step, first we're going to select the layer height. So go to the profile up here, click on here, on this tab, and select whatever layer height you want. I recommend a 0.2mm or finer. You can go to 0.16mm if you want a better detail, but for me 0.2mm is more than fine, so I'll click on that. If this pops up, click on discard to erase all previous profile modifications. Next we're going to go to the shell, and they said that they recommended a shell of 3, so where it says wall line count, switch that number all the way up to 3 if it's not already 3. Next we're going to go to infill. The description said an infill density of 0%, so this 20% or whatever number you have here, change to 0. Enter. For supports, we will not need any supports. They said supports are not needed, and if they are already included. And you can see that here on the beak, where there's plastic pieces there, so no need for supports here. Make sure that's unchecked. Build plate adhesion, we also will not need any build plate adhesion. If you take a look at the very bottom, you see that there's a lot of contact areas with the print bed. So we will not need any of that build plate adhesion. And finally, in order for this print to work, you have to search up this setting. You're going to go up here to the search, and you're going to search up thin walls. And you're going to make sure that's enabled. If you do not enable this setting, this model will not print correctly. I don't know why, but you do need to do this because it looks like the beak right here is a little too thin on the edges for the standard 0.4mm nozzle. So it's having trouble printing the model if you don't have this enabled. So like I said, make sure this is checked. If you don't see this setting, simply click on a gear on any of the tabs here and search up thin walls here on the filter and make sure that's checked once again. And other than that, you are set. All you have to do now is click on the blue slice button and you're good to go. Once it is done slicing, you should be given a time estimate of roughly 7 hours and 26 minutes for print time, but that will depend on your printer as well as the settings that you used. You should also be given an estimated filament usage of around 48 grams. Now we always preview the print and take a look around. And the reason I told you guys to enable the thin walls is, like I said, the beak is too thin for Cura, or for the nozzle that we have selected. And most printers do have the 0.4mm nozzle. You can see this grayed out piece. That's where the slicer, that's where the model has material, but the slicer is not adding any material there, and really can't do anything about it. But considering we did enable the print thin walls, the slicer did try to add material there. You can see by this little yellow here So you can also see here that this little support is hanging in the middle of nowhere. Now, don't be scared. It should print more than fine. I tried this and it did turn out good. So if you want, just skip to the end and see that see how the model turned out, because it did turn out pretty good. So I said, once you're satisfied, just click on the save button here and send the file over to your printer. First thing is going to be to remove everything off the print bed and make sure you have all 5 separate parts. Next step is going to be to remove the supports off the Toucan beak. Now the beak is very fragile, so you have to be very careful when removing these supports. I recommend grabbing a pair of tweezers and pulling/twisting these supports off. You may use your hands if the supports are difficult to remove, but once again be very careful as you can break the beak pretty easily. You'll notice pretty quick that the beak is kind of rough, so I recommend grabbing a piece of sandpaper and sanding the spots if you so desire. Next, you're going to need a hot glue for this part, so make sure that's preheating. Afterwards, you're going to grab this cube and put it inside the body, and you're going to grab the neck piece and hot glue it on there. The cube, from what I've saw, is only there to help with alignment, so if you don't want to put the cube inside, then by all means you don't have to. I see that if you leave the cube in there, you might create a little gap that is definitely visible in the final product. Make sure this part dries up and is stiff before proceeding to the next step. Next step is going to be to glue the Toucan head to the rest of the body. So same as before, take your time, be gentle, and make sure that everything is aligned properly, because it will stay like that and you definitely don't want a misaligned Toucan. The last step is going to be to attach the legs to the rest of the model. If they go in nice and smooth, then you are officially done. But you're probably part of the 99% where the legs do not go in. So we're going to do a little bit more processing. What I did to make the legs fit is grab a screwdriver roughly the same size as the hole on the body and just stick it in there and rotate clockwise and counterclockwise a few times. And after a while, the holes should widen up, allowing you to stick the legs inside. It is important that you do be gentle when inserting the legs because they do break pretty easily. Push the legs inside until you hear a little snap or click, or until you know that you have a snug fit. Alternatively, you can always use hot glue as well on this part, but that may ruin some aesthetics of the model. And once you're satisfied with your leg placement, you are completely done. Here's the final model once it's fully assembled. Everything looks pretty good except for the beak, which, like I said before, has some issues printing, but that definitely could have been alleviated with better sanding. The body separation lines can clearly be seen whenever the model is not painted, and that definitely is affected by how much glue you use, especially if you use too much hot glue. But after a quick paint job, you should be able to hide those lines pretty well. But other than that, the model has a lot of details and came out pretty well, so I definitely recommend this print for anybody who wants a pet toucan.